Welcome to DFINITY. My name is Alex, and today we're talking to James, a developer who recently came to the ICP ecosystem to build a decentralized version of the popular game Fantasy Premier League, which is played by millions of people around the world. James, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to, show the product to people and get a bit of trust in what we're doing. So, of course, I'm happy to be here.
Before anything, let's talk a bit about what you did before starting your Web3 journey.
Yeah, so I'm actually relatively new to Web3. I've worked in technology for my whole working life, so about 15 years. But for the past 6 years, I've been development and technology manager for a company called ArcStream in the UK. So they build interactive experiences for events. So if you went to a conference or something like that, we would do a big client like Ford, Coca-Cola, and they would always want the latest and greatest tech to show people to sell whatever products they're doing. So in December in 2022, a client came to me and they were looking to distribute NFTs at one of these events. So someone would go interact with it and they would get an NFT at the end of it, which was the first ever requirement for blockchain or Web3 I'd ever seen in my job. And it's normally that I'd get all clients want the newest, the latest, greatest tech. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've never had a blockchain requirement before. So that came in December and I really started looking into what the best thing for my client was. In the end, they didn't actually have the NFT part of the app, but it did start my interest in what the situation was. At the same time, ArcStream have a warehouse in the UK. At the back of it, there's a friend who owns a building company who came to me. I was talking about blockchains, and he started talking to me about an Ethereum app he wanted. And so I started doing some dev work for that, and swiftly realized one of the problems he had in his app was that it wasn't actually decentralized. If you went with Ethereum, you'd be using some sort of AWS cloud backend, and it's just the contract was on the blockchain. And that really got me thinking, like, where is the on-chain solution? And so in about February, March time, I sort of landed on ICP, and from then I haven't developed anything else.
I think this is a common thing that all developers that come to the internet computer are saying. They especially love the fact that they don't have to rely on Amazon Web Services for hosting.
I think it's a big dynamic change for developers. It's before, if I wanted to make a website for millions of people, I would need to sign up to AWS. I'd have an ongoing cost forever. I'd have a direct debit and that kind of setup. But with ICP, you buy some ICP, you essentially charge up your app, and it just runs. It gives you that. You don't have to worry about essentially funding an app for years. You can just set it up and let it run from the start. When I found ICP, it was the perfect solution for new tech, and this is how I see things going, especially for developers. It's quite an attractive solution where you can build what you want, charge it up, and if it's successful, then you can give it more cycles and stuff.
So it really is an upgrade from the normal way of doing things when you come to the internet computer.
Well, I'd say that one of the barriers of entry for any developer is to say you wanted to make a .NET Core, a Microsoft-based web app. You're going to have that as your account. You're going to have to sign up, bank details. You're going to be spending you're going to have a direct debit of $20, $25 a month just to keep things going. But it's just not the case on ICP. You come in, you buy the cycles for as you're going to use them, and then it's also so much cheaper than AWS or all these other cloud providers.
Was there a barrier to entry, or better said, what was the barrier to becoming a developer on the internet computer?
So it's completely new tech stack for what I'm used to. So I guess the biggest barrier would be understanding the data persistence side of things. You don't have a database sitting in the cloud, like your data is always available, which does actually make it easier. The hard bit is learning the programming language. I've been building in Motoko. I want to approach this whole development journey as a bit of a purist. So Motoko, I feel like this is the future. So learning that is a bit of a barrier on entry. Also, I'd say DFINITY's documentation is terrible. Like there are a lot of broken links and stuff from within their dev docs, which does make it difficult. But fortunately, the community, the forums, the discords, that just makes up for it. You've got a lot of people willing to give you good help whenever you need it. So I'd say that whenever I've got stuck, I've gone to the forums, I've gone to the community, and that sort of has always got me over the hurdle.
Yeah, we need to hit up the guys at DFINITY to fix those links. But although it was difficult in the beginning, you still managed to get the info from the DFINITY forums and a few developer discords.
I wouldn't say it's the hardest code I've ever read. I mean, I went from never touching Motoko to having Football God, my first app, up and running in about 5-6 weeks. So
okay. Is it like if you already know a programming language, would you say it is like riding a new bike?
I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I know many programming languages. One of the things I obsess about is just learning the new. I just love to learn the new tech. So I'm quite well versed in picking up new tech, especially at my time in Artstream. You didn't know what kind of hardware client was going to want to integrate, so you have to be good at picking up new languages, new APIs in that line of work. So I think I did pretty well, but it's definitely up there with one of the most complex languages I've seen, Motoko, because it's new. It's not as hard as Rust, obviously, which is what a lot of other developers use. But it's in its infancy, and like I say, the documentation isn't there yet.
Cool. Let's talk about your project. First of all, if it's obvious for everyone else, I'm sorry, but what does Open FPL stand for?
Open Chat is where I got sort of the type name Open, but FPL is Fantasy Premier League. So biggest fantasy football site in the world with 11 million managers is Fantasy Premier League. It's the official one. So I wanted to just do the Open FPL. In the UK, we call it FPL. So I'll just have the open version, which is decentralized.
Can you briefly explain this genre of game, like for me and anyone else who's not familiar with this type or genre of game?
In this country, in the UK, we like to think, or around the world, we like to think we know everything about football. We like to predict who's going to do what every single week. So in the UK, there are everyone's office, for instance, has their own league within the main league where people pick players from the 20 football teams in the biggest league in England. And if the players you pick to do well, you get points. That's how it works. So if they score goals, if they help others score goals, you'll get good points. If they get a red card, for instance, you'll lose points. So everyone gets £300 million. It's fake, obviously, but everyone gets a budget of £300 million. And they just pick the players for their teams for that week. Every week there's a new set of games, and you can make 2 changes every week to your team. So the idea is that you pick a player that's about to have like 6 or 7 good games. You don't have to change them out every week. It's all about trying to find the balance of your teams. You don't actually own your players or anything like that. It's about getting points, which will in return get you some of our utilities open, FPL. Essentially, that's all it is you pick players for the upcoming run of games, and however well they do, you'll get the points for that player. So then that's essentially how fantasy football works. As I say, it's very popular in this country. Millions of people play it religiously every week, which is why I kind of chose it for my first DAO, because I want to get people onto the internet computer rather than focusing on Web3 type apps. I want to take a Web2 app that has millions of users and change the incentive structure for it. That's my idea with FPL. It's so popular in this country. People spend hours on it, but they don't get rewarded for that. I think if you won FPL out of 11.5 million people, I think the prize is like £5,000, for instance, which for a size of that site, it just seems ridiculous. If you beat out 10 million people in a competition to only get about £5,000, that's the incentive structure I wanted to change. I want to build something that people love it, they're passionate about it as they are now, but they're rewarded fairly for taking part.
Are the results influenced by games that happen in the real world?
The results are key. So the biggest part of this app will be the data that decides how many points people get. And all of the data we're talking about, who scored in what game, what minute they scored, what minute they got sketch sent off, that is currently in Web2, and I could link out to it, but I don't want to do website. I don't want to rely on it. So one of the the things I'm implementing in the site is a way for us to get that data from the people using it, and they get rewarded for providing that information. One of the things people struggle with is getting a fair value for a player. So at the moment, that value of any player in any game is decided by the game itself, whereas our DAO is going to decide the value of players. So it's going to work out you can value each player in fantasy football once per season. You can only value 20 players a week. So you pick your players. If your valuation doesn't reach a threshold of voting power, it means not enough people have said that that player should go up this week, their value won't change, and you won't receive rewards unless the value changes. For instance, that's the first difference in this fantasy football app, is we're letting the users value the players based on consensus, which will hopefully bring out a fairer value for people. The second part of this, with the data we're trying to validate, is, like I said, every event that happens in the game who scores when it happens. And so there's going to be a way for neuron holders to add this information into the DAO, and we're going to take the consensus result. So if a game is 2-1 and everyone bar one person says it's 2-1, we're going to go with 2-1. The person that gets wrong won't get any rewards for putting incorrect information in the DAO. And this is the Web 2 side of it comes on. At the moment, I personally think that I would have incentivized users enough to give me the right information. But if they haven't, I'm going to build in a way to talk to a third party to just check what the consensus result is to what only Web 2 provider says the result is. And whenever there's a difference in these key data points, I have something that's called the Data Validation Council, which will look at the differences in data and vote through what the actual data value is. That council, again, will be voted on by DAO members. The DAO can add and remove people. Also, everyone gets like a rating for how well they validate data. So you typically, or it's called a reputation, you typically only allow people with good reputations to go to the data validation to DAO to ensure that the data in the system is accurate.
Okay, so the reason why you want to go on this route is because you don't want to get your information from Web 2 or like from the regular internet.
I want to build something that if all Web 2 were destroyed tomorrow, it would still work. So I'm building it in a way that whatever the people say the score is, that's what the score is. But there are checks afterwards to make sure that is correct. And I'm trying to build it in an abstract way that you can swap out that Web 2 provider. So say I was getting the scores from the GPT API for now, you may swap that later because then it'll be a better alternative. But even if you stopped the check, everything will still run perfectly with no dependency on Web 2 at all.
Okay, I can see why people would be interested in this game, especially if you're a sports fan. And I really like the fact that there is nothing like it on the internet computer. So that's really, really great. Cool. So James, you're currently doing a crowdfunding round through Funded App. Why should people invest in this crowdfunding round? Like, what are the benefits that they are getting?
Well, the most immediate and obvious benefit is when I get to the SNS, they'll get 100,000 of my FPL token. We're staked in 3 neurons, one that's liquid, one that's 1 year delay, and one that's like 2 year delay. But the reason I've done the funded app route is because I ideally do want to implement this governance system for valuing players and inputting data, but I need people to be able to do that now. So the funded app allows me to get NFT holders involved where I know they have the NFT because I can check the Alistair and I can then allow them to participate in this beta season that I'm doing. My plan is to desperately get this up and running for the season that starts in about 5-6 weeks. And so then the governance side of that comes into play when the season is live. For instance, people change teams during the season. I need to be revaluing people during the season. So I really need NFT holders to come and get an NFT so they can help participate in what we're building. But I feel like I've put in a quite generous token allocation, like 10% of my tokens will go to these funded app people.
Okay, cool. So the backers receive 100,000 tokens each, and the allocation for the funded round is 10% of the whole supply, which is very generous. Do you have any idea how much these tokens will be worth once you launch on the SNS?
That it will be decided by the decentralization sale at the end of the day. So they're not going to have these tokens until after the SNS. And it's typically decided by whatever ICP gets traded for the 25% that will go into that decentralization sale. I've actually just put TBC on the white paper because I don't want to put a figure on it yet. With the funded app, I didn't want to put a figure on it. So I went to the community, I asked the people that were helping me with the white paper, what is a good funded app value for this? And I'd essentially do the same. I don't know if you know accumulating ICP as well.
No, I know of him. I don't know him personally.
He's like the hawk I'm trying to get things by. So I've been going into him directly saying, I don't want to be accused of one of those people that's trying to drain the community fund or something like that. I want to build something that's a fair value for people when it does get to the SNS. So I don't know what the price will be, but it will be the SNS value will be decided on not just by the community at large, because I like I said, I don't want to be one of these people accused of just trying to take the community fund and just get something to the SNS. The attraction for me is it's a technical goal for me. I wanted to get a token on that in SNS because it's just a holy grail of ICP. So that's I'm doing it. So I'm not sure what that opening price would be. In my head, I don't know why, I just feel like an FPL token would be about 20 cents, let's say. Well, that's just because I've gone with the same tokenomics as Open Chat, but who knows?
Most investors will look at it and say, okay, this costs 20 ICP, and in the future, that will be worth 100 ICP, so it makes sense to invest in it.
Say they held their neuros for the 2 years that they would have, but they would definitely see a big return on that. I fully believe there is a lot of money in Premier League, especially Premier League advertising. I don't think we currently have a site on ICP that has millions of weekly users. If that kind of a site can be made, I think a new business model comes out with advertising revenue going into a treasury, which ultimately will make a token very valuable.
Where will Open FPL DAO be development-wise by the next bull market? So like we're talking 2025.
In the next 2 years, it will be up and running, completed, because that would be the longest project I've ever worked on. And so I would say this is, in my head, this is where I see myself, but we're going to have a game up and running within the next 6 weeks. People are going to be able to pick their teams, and there's going to be no token involved in it in that first instance. Over the next few months, we are going to get ready to integrate this app into the SNS sale. So ideally, the SNS sale comes before. My target is to have so in August next year, the season starts, and I want it finished by then. I want to go into that season on the SNS, have my token there. That's my dream. So by that time, there's get the app done, get people playing, and then just build out that architecture that you're going to need to have it run forever by itself. There's a few key challenges. Like there's a multi-canister architecture I need to put in place to make sure something watching every canister. It needs to be able to scale properly. And these are the challenges that I see us solving towards the Q4 going into early next year. Would ideally like to get to SNS by the end of the year. That's very hopeful, especially with the type of integration we're going to require. It's not just a straight yes, no on proposals DAO is operating on. It's valuing players, it's checking data, things like that. So there's probably going to be a big SNS integration come, but I think we can get to 24-25 season ready to go.
You know, it's interesting to have a DAO that focuses on deciding, in this case, the players' valuations or the match scores. So basically, it's content inside the app as opposed to how the app itself operates. I like this idea.
So I started wanting to get to the SNS, but I don't want to get to the SNS in a bad project.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can see that we weren't being governed by its users. And like I said at the start, this app is so popular with the non-open version, but if its community users ran it, I think there's a lot of potential that can come out of it.
So you'll build the game first and then launch it through the SNS in order to decentralize it, which is the whole purpose of the SNS to begin with.
I feel like it's the way to go forward with apps is you build it to a point of decentralization, and then that's really a big win for me is if you're able to build something that can just run on its own, you've built something perfect. So.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. James, where can people find you and where can they invest in Open FPL?
You can find me on Twitter, Beadle1989. You can also find the Open FPL Twitter, which is OFPL_DAO. From there, you can get the open chat for Open FPL. I'm quite active in that. I've got some people that are running my Discord for me, so it's very easy to get hold of me. So I'm trying to say I'm always online, and anyone can ask me anything. And I'm also doing an AMA tomorrow, so I'm just trying to be as open and available as possible for people to ask me questions.
Cool. So yeah, I think that was it. James, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to see how Open FPL turns out. So thank you very much for tuning in, and stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Alex. Best of luck with the podcast.
Woo! I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you next time.